What is the metaverse? In this video, we're going to be breaking down what the metaverse is. We're going to be looking at it from a variety of different angles so you, the viewers, can understand what the metaverse is to equip you on your quests out there in Web3 and the metaverse. And as always, I'm joined by James Anderson, our in-house blockchain expert. How are you doing today, James?
Very well, Max. It's good to be here with you again, in person.
Well, I can't get rid of you. You follow me around everywhere. So, but we are here. So what is the metaverse? To start off with, I mean, there's a lot to unpack, and I think we agree, James, that it's a debate at the moment. I don't think there is anyone who can conclusively say this is what the metaverse is. We're in that debating mode. So me and James are going to be debating the topics. And I would like to just kick things off by looking at the metaverse and the term and how it came about. And I think we've got to give, I know it's not easy, but some credit to Mark Zuckerberg. A lot of people obviously hate him, and for, good reason. I mean, he's a controversial guy, but let's face it, the term metaverse really came into popular culture in Q4 of 2021 when Mark Zuckerberg rebranded Facebook to Meta, and it was that announcement that really got the party side. So if you're trying to understand what is the metaverse, you've got to be, you can look at it through the eyes of Mark Zuckerberg, and what does he think? He thinks it's a Ready Player One scenario. He thinks it's almost like the Matrix, that we're going to sit at home, put some headsets on, and we're going to jump into virtual worlds, or it could be through AR. But he hasn't really talked much about decentralization. He's keeping it it's actually quite a centralized service run by Meta. And what's your view on the definition of Mark? Do you think he's
first name?
Mark first name basis.
First name
do you think it's he's nailed the definition from the metaverse, or what do you think?
I think Mark Zuckerberg. I think obviously the term metaverse has existed for a long time, but I absolutely agree with you. It's come into popularity through him. I'd say that there's a couple of things to unpack. That there is a terminology for Web3, and I think Web3 and Metaverse are used interchangeably quite a lot. I think they are different. I think that Web3 broadly, from my understanding and what I define Web3 as two things. One of them is fundamentally decentralized. I think that's the big thing. I think Web3 is any Web3 focused product or service or technology, I think has to have an area of decentralization through the blockchain, some kind of experience through that. And I think in addition, I think the description of Web3 as a ubiquitous experience lends itself to, I think, a more narrow definition of what the metaverse is, which I think is the arena in which we have these seamless online experiences which are hard to distinguish from reality. And I think that's, broadly speaking, what the metaverse is. And I also think, in addition to that, I think the metaverse is interdependent. That's another thing. I think it's going to be, or has to be, an environment where you can essentially have a high degree of interoperability, which is, for layman's terms, the ability to kind of jump from one technology to the other without a break in your experience. So I think those terms together would define what metaverse is. And I think it's changed a lot with Web3.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, the two terms can get confused into one, and I think they are different. And I think for me personally, and again, the metaverse is a debate. I do like elements of Mark Zuckerberg's thesis on what the metaverse is. I like the idea of virtuality. I do feel that when the headsets get a bit better, that I could buy a computer, I could also buy a headset, be working at my computer, put a headset on for a couple hours a day, jump into work meetings, meet up with my friends after work, collaborate, go and experience art galleries and go to events. And I think VR, it helps with education. There's so much to unpack in virtual reality, and I think headsets are definitely part of the metaverse. The metaverse story. Same as augmented reality, putting augmented reality glasses on, and then we could perhaps, like me and you are talking across the room, but maybe in the future we'll put AR glasses on and you'll just appear in front of me, and so will my work colleagues, and so will loads of information, how I get through the world. And I think as we are glued to our smartphones now, in the future we'll be glued to AR glasses. I mean, people will be more, on the road to cyborgs, basically. We already are. We're with our phones all the time. You put the AR glasses on. I think Mark is approaching the metaverse from that experience layer, talking about what does that VR and AR mean for humanity, and the way that digital layer that overlays the the world. But then, I think you're right. It gets confused with Web3, and there is a clash between what Mark says, which is, it's AR, it's VR, and it's all on our central servers, compared to Web3, which is all about the decentralization. And that's why I think they can be separated, because Web3, in definition, how a lot of people define it, again, still debated, is that decentralization. So just wondering, what do you think about that? Do you think decentralization is a key element of the metaverse, or do you think that it's not a factor at all in metaverse?
I think Web3 also is defined by the evolution of how machines process data as well. So it's having, data at the moment is processed in a very or Web 2 focused data, whereas Tim Berners-Lee actually was the first person to think about Web 3 as a function of the evolution of machine learning. I'm not sure how that definition has changed, but there is another kind of caveat to the definition, in which that the evolution of machines to process data has evolved. In answer to your second question, I don't think that the future of Metaverse is necessarily predicated on complete decentralization. I don't think decentralization is always great, the best. I don't think we shouldn't try to decentralization for everything. I think centralization is important for many things, and I actually think for many functions of the world, you need centralization, you need accountability, you need a central person to say, you're the person who did this, sort it out. So I don't think we can get into a habit of making putting centralization on some kind of pedestal. I think to service those experiences in the metaverse, it has to be centralized. You have to have a centralized infrastructure to service these really powerful experiences. For example, of Horizon and Facebook's Horizon Worlds, which is their VR platform, that can't be decentralized. I think there's going to be a marriage between the two. I think there'll be decentralized areas in centralized worlds. And I think by extension, where the real magic will be when we can have truly interoperable worlds. And by interoperable worlds, I mean that you could probably go to a Nintendo's world, and then you could go to Facebook's world. But in the transfer, you're not losing any of your identity, because your identity is validated through the blockchain. So you have a digital identity which is carried across all these worlds. You have a work world which you go to, and through all these different worlds, they have all different perks. So you can have some centralized worlds, decentralized worlds, but you have a shared sense or unified sense of who you are as a person. And I think that's really the magic, I think, of where these two worlds collide.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack in Metaverse. Like, there is so much to debate and so much to be seen. But I think one massive area, which could be a video in itself, is digital identity. Like, what does that really mean? It's such a profound term, and it's way more than avatars. It's like in these worlds, and when you get into the metaverse, if you go through VR, you're going to have your avatar that could, as you go through these worlds, you'll collect like goods and NFTs. But what if the your digital identity could go further than that and actually have loads of information on you? Like, could it have even like some KYC information? When you go into, get your insurance, or you go into a bank, is it necessary that could your digital avatar have unlock all the information about you as an individual, like a wallet that, so I use Apple Pay, and with Apple Pay, 2 clicks, bang, I can pay for anything that I want, because it's linked through my verification with my face. It's linked to to my phone, so I can pay for stuff. It unlocks my bank just through Apple having that intermediary to my banking details. On my phone, I've got emails. I can access my emails. I actually got my passport photo scanned onto my phone as well. If you looked through an individual's phone, you would actually have almost their complete digital identity. If you look through my emails, you'd probably, because I'm doing a mortgage application, you'd find my passport, you'd find my banking details, people who I like. You'd find my photos over the last 5 years almost every day, because I've got kids. If someone unlocked my phone, they would know everything about me. And with digital identity, it takes it further. And when you go into these worlds and you take your digital identity with you, what do we really want to give away? And I think, although Mark Zuckerberg has done a lot of great things for the space of the metaverse. I'm very scared about digital identity, giving it to Mark Zuckerberg. Well, scares me a lot.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg has not got a great reputation. Facebook have not got a great reputation for protecting digital identity. But I think that's where blockchain can come in, because when you have your identity stored on the blockchain, and you can have, key identifiers like a telephone number, I think is a really powerful source of digital identity. A blockchain is pseudo-anonymous, so what the Bitcoin blockchain is, you can have, and you have to be careful about a public blockchain versus a private blockchain. So if you have all your data stored on the public blockchain, then everyone will be able to see the activities of your wallet. So, for example, you can see Bitcoin transactions from and as a wallet ID. You can't see the person behind it, but that's kind of a big part of the Bitcoin blockchain. It's pseudo anonymity. But to answer the question about the digital identity, I think the blockchain will be able to do that. And I think it will allow our users to get a sense of ownership over their data, because we did in the program I did a few months ago, we did a case study, or we were doing an experiment on how could we implement mobile phone numbers onto the blockchain. And one idea we had was, and it links into digital identity, was if you could have your number on the blockchain, stored on the blockchain, you could really have an early attempt of having a truly stored digital identity, which is stored in the blockchain. You wouldn't identify who you are, because it'd just be numbers on a screen. And you could allow access to different parties to your number through consenting to authenticate transactions. So I think there's a lot, and I think that's why digital identity has to be decentralized, because if it's not and it's centralized, there's not much difference between that and what we have before.
Yeah, we open ourselves up for potential, tyranny. What if a government, if all your data is centralized, they could literally, have access to your whole life, block you out of society, pretty much put you in like a, if they want to kind of, stop your ability to make payments, stop your ability to transact with people. If it's centralized, they can do that. It's more or less like, putting someone in jail or something like that, taking them out of society. So I think it's so important there is that decentralized element to it. But again, you can see how the terms can get modeled because metaverse, the way that Mark looks anyway is through virtual reality, augmented reality. This decentralization isn't necessarily it is on Meta's radar, but I don't think they'll be too bothered if the decentralization never comes. I mean, they just want to keep you in the platform. They're not too bothered about it.
And the data they can get on you is absolutely terrifying. For example, they are tracking your iris movement on the VR headsets. They're tracking and eye movement is a massive indicator of like neuro behavior, and you can tell a lot through people's eye movements, and you've got a massive VR headset on and it's tracking your eye movements, tracking what your interests are. And Facebook as a steward of this world, you couldn't think of a worse company to be the stewards of this new world. And that again is very terrifying. I think we have to be very careful. And I think to your point around payments, central bank digital currencies are another thing which we have to think about very seriously as well. This future in which we have our money which is programmed, and through programmation of money, you can do amazing things. So you could do targeted taxes to certain audience members. You could say, this population of 1 million people will get this tax rate. This person will get here. You will have seamless payments. You won't have to do your taxes because all your payments will be stored in the blockchain. The downside is you can absolutely freeze someone out from society, because you could say, well, no, you're not allowed to buy these products today. We're going to program your money to not allow you buying that. Terrifying. And if you have an authoritarian regime like China or North Korea or Russia, or a centralized regime of terror with this technology, you can go into very, very terrifying waters.
It's also like, if you look at social media, some of the same problems are going to come to the metaverse. So, for example, like look at Donald Trump, who has been banned from Twitter. Like he's not allowed on Twitter as a platform. And whether you like Donald Trump or not, what they've basically done is they're saying to Donald Trump, you're no longer allowed a voice on social media. And, obviously we're still in Web 2. So it doesn't mean like he's completely taken away from society. But when Web 3 comes, when we live in these digital worlds, if a government decides we don't like what you're saying, you don't have a voice in the metaverse, you're not going to be able to communicate with people, have jobs. What happens if if your workplace is now in the metaverse and you're going and the metaverse is owned by a certain company like Microsoft, and Microsoft say, no, actually, we don't like what you're saying. You're going against our political views, like Twitter did, banning Donald Trump
because he's inciting a riot,
inciting violence,
which is I think I think we have to be careful about martyring someone like Donald Trump. I mean, he had.
By the way, just a caveat: I am not a Donald Trump supporter. I'm just using that as an example.
But I see your point.
If someone doesn't like what you're saying, that you can be taken off, and it's a company. It's Twitter. Twitter made that political decision. Like he was the president. And Twitter, an unelected company, made that decision.
Well, but it's a private platform, though, Twitter. So it's a private. It's not a public utility. I think that's where another thing comes in. Are these platforms public utilities rather than for-profit companies? If they are public utilities, maybe we have some international consortium of people who all agree. Like, if the whole globe agrees that this person is spreading misinformation, if this person's spreading or inciting violence, then I agree. But it is a really difficult topic, because then what happens down the line if someone else just there's a political disagreement, you could be freezed out of society.
It's like for example, me on LinkedIn, actually, like LinkedIn, like I couldn't do my job if I was taken off LinkedIn. Like if LinkedIn as a corporation said to me, you're not allowed a LinkedIn profile, I couldn't find a job. Like everyone who looks for a job looks at you on LinkedIn, and Microsoft have as a ton of power, and the metaverse is only going to entrench that. Like for example, when you have AR glasses and you're, if now the information that you're given through AR is like incredibly powerful. It's giving you like all the information that you need to navigate life. And if you're no longer allowed on the platforms of augmented reality because the corporation says we don't like what you're saying. And at the moment, the corporations lean to the left, but corporations can also lean to the right. So it's the metaverse has a lot of problems, but. And again, as we debate this, and at the beginning of the video, we said the metaverse is a debate. There's no topics, and these debates are the questions people are asking around this whole topic. Should metaverse and Web3 be interchangeable? What is even Web3? I mean, Web3 again is a debate. Like, no, there's not really a complete consensus about what Web3 actually is. But so if you're looking to understand the metaverse platform, James, what do you think are, if you could now boil it down to three things that people need to think about when they're thinking about the metaverse? It can get ultra complicated. I mean, people can write thesis on this. This could be debated by 100 intellectuals for years before they come to a developing. But what three areas do you think that people can take away when they're thinking about what is the metaverse they can hold in their mind and take with them?
I mean, I give my best shot. I can probably give you a few, but I think the first one is definitely has to be immersive experiences, experiences which are truly immersive. So virtual reality experiences, and the second one I think is interdependent kind of exchange of identity. I think that's an important one as well. So the ability to kind of jump between worlds and not lose a sense of who you were in the last world. And I think they're probably the two for metaverse. I think Web3 would be different, but I think for metaverse would be those two.
I like that approach. I think it is immersive experiences. Is if you're thinking about what is the metaverse, it's that experience layer that either does or does not sit within Web3. That's still going to be debated, but I think it's that experience layer. I think it's virtual reality headsets, augmented reality headsets, NFTs. I think are part of it, but don't necessarily have to be part of it. Like I think you can buy NFTs in the metaverse, but I don't think you necessarily need that integration to the blockchain for it to happen. So I think Web3 and metaverse aren't necessarily don't have to be completely interlinked. But we would love to hear what you guys think. This is a debate. Drop your feedback in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be dropping our theories, our theses in the space. Any final thoughts from you, James, to leave the audience on?
I think that's a succinct explanation. Let's see what people think.